Hello, and greetings from the Bright Radiance and Collateral Light starships. I am Will Pena, and I would like to design tabletop games someday. Uh, and in an effort to get better at doing that, I have decided to start this, my design diary, which is just a collection every week of things that I've designed, lessons that I've learned from other designers, um, and everything I can do to kind of just put together what I've learned into a nice, easy to watch video that I can look back on and remind myself of lessons and hopefully see how far I've come. The Green brothers talk a lot about paying attention to what you pay attention to. So in the past week, and even a little bit before that, I've started taking notes when I'm reading, like Making Magic by Mark Rosewater, or I have a lot of different newsletters from different designers that I read. So I've started writing stuff down and keeping track of everything that I can, so that hopefully it sits in my mind a little bit better, and I can have this wonderful notebook that's a resource for everything that I do. So let's get started with some of my own design stuff that I did in the past week. Here on the 24th, it looks like I tried to revamp Alt WinCon Assassins. Right now I am trying to win with every alternative WinCon in Magic the Gathering. And the first one I'm going to do, because Commander's the format that I play most often, is the only one that's stapled onto a Commander, which is... let me actually look that up. So the commander is Ramses Assassin Lord, has Death Touch. Other assassins you control get +1/+1, and whenever a player loses the game, if they were attacked this turn by an assassin you controlled, I win the game. So that's the goal. We will see how it goes. Last time I played it, I drew nothing but lands, which was an unfortunate premiere for the deck. But it does teach you a little bit that maybe... I think it was 39 lands originally, maybe 40 was just a little bit too many. We are in black-blue, so there's not a ton of opportunity for land tutoring or ramp, not like, green. So, you got to have a good amount of lands in there if you want to hit all your land traps. But I also got like my Arcane Signet and my... Sapphire Medallion and Jet Medallion, and like I just drew nothing but lands and mana ramp. So I removed a bunch of the ramp artifacts, as I have a fairly low CMC too on the deck, or at least I did, like sitting around 4 or something as the average cost of my spells, so didn't really have to worry about that too much. I added a bit of card draw, again, just so if this happens again, maybe I'll have a nice heuristic study in there that can draw me through these lands. And something that occurred to me while I was playing in that game was that there was kind of a feud going on through two of the other players, Lauren and Sam, and they were just attacking each other back and forth, reducing their life totals to almost nothing. And I wanted so badly for someone to end up at maybe 3 life, and for me to just cast Ramses. I had an adaptive automaton on the board that was an assassin, and if I could have just gotten in that last 3 damage, I could have won the game. So I realized I don't have to actually take someone from 40 to 0 using all assassins. I can just get that. All I need is that last bit of damage. And that feels very on flavor to me. That feels like I am really being like a manipulative kind of tactician behind the scenes. It reminds me a lot of Calvoy Crawler in A Crown of Candy. So I added a bunch of bounce spells to my deck. And the idea there is hopefully, one, a defensive measure, right? Because I've got a lot of Death Touch to work with, so that's I'm a very thorny target to hit, but all my creatures are very important to me because I do need to get that last bit of damage in. So I added a bunch of bounce spells. One is a defensive measure, right? We don't want a giant green big dumb idiot to come and swing, and we can just bounce that away, right? We're blue. I got to get into the blue-black mindset, right? And the other idea is that hopefully my dream condition with all these unsummons, right, is that someone swings out for just more than lethal. I bounce one of their creatures. So the person who's supposed to die survives with 3 life, and I come in for the kill with one of my assassins, and Ramsey's out on the board. That is just the dream. So we've changed from like, I am going to deal a bunch of damage with all these assassins to I am going to land the killing blow. Like, that is my entire focus, is just getting that last, 10 or less life points done. Also, another interesting route that I noticed was like a kind of changeling Maskwood Nexus, like everything assassins, like a tribal deck where everything's assassins. And because what we got, changeling, a whole bunch of changelings. We got Maskwood Nexus to make everything assassins, Arcane Adaptation to make everything assassins, and then 2 cards I'd never heard of before, but Conspiracy and Xenograft would also help in this kind of idea. And the idea there is to have like a tribal deck where we get someone to lose the game. There's 2 different ideas going on here, where Ramsey's Assassin Lord, the exact text is, whenever a player loses the game, if they were attacked this turn by an assassin you controlled, you win the game. So, 1, the assassin doesn't even have to kill the person. It doesn't even have to do damage, right? It just needs to attack. And if we can make the opponent lose the game by some means other than combat damage, we still get that win the game trigger. So that is, that's something we can do. Also, when I was on EDH Rec originally looking at this deck, I saw a lot of poison counters synergies. And that definitely makes it easier, right? Like I was just saying, you need 10 damage is all. And that's where this deck kind of thrives, is getting 10 damage in on someone. But because the goal of this whole series is to win with every alternate win con, something about using poison counters felt a little bit off to me. I just didn't love doing it. I don't know, just didn't. It feels like using an alternate lose condition to get an alternate win condition. And I guess I just described that as that kind of weird changeling tribal deck with some like you lose the game effects, like switching who controls stuff. But I don't know, it feels different. Like if I'm going to do combat damage, I want to just do combat damage, Don't want to get poison into the mix there. So that's Alt-Win Con's Assassins. I think I'll be trying it out again tonight, so next week I'll hopefully be able to update you on how all of my deck changes went. I also added a lot of instant speed unblockable stuff, just for the same opposite reasons as the bounce spells, to get, like, I want to be the one pulling the strings, controlling how much damage gets done each combat, so that I can get someone down to a low enough life total that I can kill them myself. Yes, okay, so here I have the note. The assassins don't even have to hit, and the trigger isn't based on combat damage. Look into ways to get opponents to lose the game in second main phase. So I don't really know what those would be. I know black has a lot of you lose the game things, but I would need to transfer control of those effects. It'd be an entirely different deck. We'll see what happens. So yeah, that is a second alternate route, as opposed to the Changeling Maskwood Nexus Arcane Adaptation route, which would also be a lot of fun. I love a tribal deck. That was one of the first decks that I ever played when I was playing Magic the Gathering. And it was just far too much for me. I completely did not understand what was going on. There were so many triggers. There was so much to keep track of. Terrible idea. But I would like to go back to it now. And it would be really fun for me to build it. Okay. We move on to 726. So yeah, I didn't have a ton of time this week to design anything of myself. Any of my own original projects I would like to work on. So a lot of this is going to be Magic the Gathering deck building, which is what I had time for. And there is a lot of elements of design in there, and I have a lot of fun doing it. So I think it's still a big learning experience for me. So yeah, Lauren, my fiance, asked me to make a. Lauren, my fiance, asked me to make a reanimation deck for her. For a long time, she avoided playing black in Magic the Gathering because she didn't want to worry about her graveyard. She didn't want to, the cards in her hand were enough for her to, read and be concerned and have the mental space for. But now that she's played a little bit more and is getting a hang on a lot of the rules, she is very excited by the idea of having a entire different pool of stuff that you can access in the game. So she was interested in a reanimation theme. And also, I don't play a ton of black decks because it's just not the playstyle that I kind of gravitate towards. I know that I'm playing a black deck with Ramses Assassin Lord, but I also just don't interact with the graveyard a whole ton. So I thought that it'd be a fun challenge and show me some of the places where I'm, not as well versed in Magic. I mean, there's a ton of places where I'm not as well versed in Magic. I've only been playing for like a year and a half now. But, it's time to start kind of coming out of my comfort zone, especially if I want to be a better designer and kind of have a full understanding of the game to go explore what does reanimation look like. So the commander I chose was Chainer, Nightmare Adept. Give me a second to pull that up. Chainer, Nightmare Adept. 2, a black and a red. Legendary creature, human minion. Discard a card. You may cast a creature card from your graveyard this turn. Activate this ability only once each turn. I actually didn't realize that Chainer was a human minion creature type. I would now love to make a minion tribal deck. We'll see if there's any support for that. And whenever a non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, if you didn't cast it from your hand, it gains haste until your next turn. So it's really simple. There's just not a whole lot going on there. The one downside is that you have to pay the casting cost of these creatures that are in your graveyard. But I didn't want the entire deck to be focused around this one commander. I wanted it to be kind of a reanimation deck with Chainer there to help facilitate that. And the haste is honestly the more exciting thing between those two abilities, is that if I use, or if Lauren uses Animate Dead or Zombify or anything like that to raise some big, awesome creature from the graveyard, it can immediately be a threat on the board. So that was the exciting thing to me. One of the rare decks where I get through EDH Rec with less than 100 cards. In fact, I need 12 more. Let's see if I can play more into the discard aspect of things. There are a couple of discard benefits I didn't originally put in there just because I kind of forgot that was a large aspect of the commander. Although it can only be activated once each turn, but that's also interesting. That it's once each turn where, commander's a 4-player game. Any flash creatures can come out at any time from the graveyard. I put Vidalcan Orrery in there just for fun, just because it's cool to have the threat of giant monsters in your graveyard at instant speed. If that ever comes out, I'll be very excited to see how it works. I am out of focus. Hello. Because I'm not as familiar with this archetype, and this is a brand new style of deck for me, this was one where I'd kind of go through EDH Rec, check out what their highest energy cards are, get a feel for if I would enjoy them and if Lauren would enjoy them, and if our play group is if that's the style of stuff we do, because I didn't put in a lot of demonic, I didn't put in a lot of tutors, because generally we play with a little less of those, and stuff like that. Even graveyard tutors, I didn't do that many because Lauren's playing this deck for the first time, right? So she's got to get a good idea of what cards she likes in there, which ones she would want to go in the graveyard. Because if you there's one card, I don't remember the name, but it lets you find 3 creature cards from your library and put them into the graveyard. But if you're playing this deck for the first time, you just don't really know what you want, right? Maybe you've seen Atali Primal Storm before and you're that'd be fun. But I think that, while you're still learning the deck for the first few times, a tutor isn't going to be the most helpful in this specific situation. Maybe I'm wrong with that. We'll see. But I think the deck will be a lot of fun. I looked up Black's biggest, best creatures. I looked up Red's biggest, best creatures. And there's a lot of really cool, fun stuff in there to reanimate. So I'm hoping that it goes well. I'm hoping that she's able to just play Tormenting Voice, pitch 2 giant cards into the graveyard, next turn animate dead, get those 2 giant cards onto the battlefield. They have haste. I hope it all really, turns out. So that'll be really exciting. On the 27th, I continued to build the Chainer deck, added a bunch of big idiots for her to reanimate. Like I said, should be super fun. On the 28th, I started making a deck for Savine the Chronoclasm. I have a kind of giant box topper version of her card on my wall, but I don't actually have a deck for her or him. I actually don't know anything about Savine, however they identify. But I didn't want to feel like such a poser having a magic card up on the wall that I've never actually used. So I thought it'd be a lot of fun to make this Savine deck, especially because I was looking into graveyard stuff already. Savine has, I'm just going to look at the card on my wall right now, prevent all damage that would be dealt to Savine the Chronoclasm. Whenever you cast your first instant or sorcery spell from your graveyard each turn, copy that spell. You may choose new targets for the copy. I love copy abilities. I think they're a little cheesy sometimes. But if you build an entire deck around it, it suddenly becomes very fun for me. So this is a similar topic where I just kind of go through EDH rec, see what works for me, see what works for a deck the kind of, decks I like to play. We'll see when I play with it, how it turns out. Right now, I don't have a clear win con in the deck, which is not the best. But right now, the goal of it was less to win the game and burn out all my opponents, right? The more fun option for me is taking some powerful spell and copying it about 4 or 5 times. That's my dream with this deck. So we'll see if it turns out. I'll take some notes on these decks when they're played, and hopefully report back with good news or news about how they can be improved. So that's the idea there. So that's the design work that I did this week. Like I said, not a ton of time to do my own actual stuff, but there's tons of stuff to be learned from making decks and just seeing new cards and seeing new abilities and really paying attention to those things. What else do we have? I'll go back and see if there's anything I want to share from my, I take notes when I'm reading, Making Magic, or I'm watching Designing the Game with Matt Colville. That just came out this week. What a wonderful coincidence and what a wonderful gift to see MCDM's behind the scenes design stuff. Looks awesome. And it's just a really great resource. Something big was that I looked at the March of the Machine Vision Design handoff document that was in one of the Making Magic articles. And the whole idea of vision design really intrigued me because I come from another design background, actually, which is theatrical design, kind of set design and scenic painting and stuff like that. And it really reminded me that you can't dive right into building the set and painting the set. You have to come up with, what do you want the set to look like? What do you want the set to feel like, right? And I think in the past, that's something that I haven't given enough attention to in my designs. I'm thinking of working on a Arctic survival adventure that I ran a couple sessions of a few years ago. Yeah, a few years ago. That was a ton of fun. And I want to turn it into an adventure that anyone can run, that I can, maybe sell on Drive-Thru RPG or something like that, where people can download it and play with their friends, right? And I was thinking of diving right back into it, checking out the mechanics that I made earlier and trying to rework them and retool them and start writing a whole bunch. But then reading this article made me realize that, hey, let's take a second. Let's look at Arctic survival and let's see what we want to make with that. Let's see how can we deliver on cold? How can we deliver on hungry? How can we deliver on like you are being chased and like everything is closing in on you, but if you can just make it one more day, then everything's gonna be fine, right? How are we gonna make that into Dungeons and Dragons mechanics? And so before we can turn those into mechanics, we have to understand cold and hunger and fear, right? So that was the realization with that, which I'm really excited to start looking into. What's his name? There's a video essayist on YouTube who has, I think, like, fear of cold, right? Jacob Geller, that's his name. So I'm excited to go back and watch those videos and take some notes and get some inspiration. What else do we have? Any other words of wisdom? Here from Matt Colville, from Tactical Heroic Cinematic Fantasy, designing the game episode 1. Chop it up into 1,000,000 tiny pieces. Take it one piece at a time. Don't freak out over how big the problem is. Don't be intimidated. It's like how you eat an elephant, one bite at a time. Which is just something that I know in my head, but I have to constantly keep reminding myself. Start with a clearly defined goal, almost like a brand statement, very related to what I was just talking about with the vision design. Talk about outlines. Here's flow and the null result. I love the way that Matt Colville titles his videos. All ideas are original. It's just some have been thought of before, which was just something that really tickled me. And like both, it's just a funny little statement, and reminds me that we don't. Not everything has to be the most original, groundbreaking thing in the world. You can still make great stuff with don't prejudge your ideas. That's what it is. Is like, if you have an idea and it's exciting to you, go for it. Don't squash it before it can even become anything. Anything else? No, I think that's good. I think that's all for this week. I'm very excited to play a game of Commander with my friends tonight. I'm going to keep notes on how, I'm pretty sure Lauren's going to play the Chainer deck, so I'm definitely going to keep notes on that. And I think I'm also going to play Ramses. And so I'll be taking double notes this game, which is great. It gives me something to do. It's very exciting. I'm very happy to be making this. It makes everything feel, really real. I know I didn't have a ton of my own stuff to show off today. But another wonderful piece of advice from the Green Brothers, or maybe it was from Matt Colville, or someone that I've mentioned already in this video, is that don't let perfection be the enemy of done. I want to make these things, and I didn't have a lot of time this week, but I'm still going to make this video because this is all part of it, and it's got to start somewhere. If I start waiting for the perfect week to make this video where I can show off something really cool, I'm never going to do it. So, got to start now. Thank you for watching. Even if it's just me in the future, thanks for watching, Will. And I will see you next week.